Welcome back to a further episode of Men's Inner Health with Mark Randall. In today's conversation, I'm going to be exploring the concept of shame, internalized shame. Shame is a really powerful energy deep down inside ourselves. Shame and guilt sit a bit together. We can feel ashamed. Guilt is the perceived wrongdoing, but shame is, I am the wrongdoing, as if I shouldn't have been born. Where do we learn these things from? We learn them growing up in life. It's handed down, really. When we're criticised growing up, when we don't get the appropriate emotional connection, the appropriate messages from our parents, our loved ones, we can begin to internalise that as if there's something wrong with us. Shame is a real strong, powerful energy it's a horrible space to have to experience. I think shame was put on the map it's probably been on the map for a long time, but I think it was John Bradshaw back in the 80s. He did a lot of work around shame. He was a doctor of psychology in the United States, and he himself had addiction issues. I think he wrote a book on shame. And in addiction, shame is a very powerful motivator. It's a catch-22 situation, really, because with shame, we feel like shit. We are shit. I'm nothing but shit. But then to escape that, there is the incessant use of alcohol and other drugs, and then the person becomes addicted to that, and it may not just be drugs, it could be work, but work's a different one, a different addiction. Society says, oh, that's an okay one to have, or used to. It's perhaps changing. But there are a number of addictions, and when we get caught in that addictive cycle, we keep self-sabotaging, and in that self-sabotaging we keep re-shaming ourselves. I think it was Einstein that said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting a different outcome. Well, that don't happen. I think in general, and feel in general, that for a lot of us men, we do carry a lot of internalized shame. One of the big protecting factors to this shame is anger and rage. And that anger and rage, anger's an emotion, rage can become a behaviour, a violent behaviour. Maybe it's out of that shame that the term toxic masculinity has been bandied around and labelled as us men. And yeah, maybe it is that rage that's protecting that sense of shame, that felt sense of shame. Because when we feel shame is a horrible, it just kills the self-esteem. We feel inferior, inadequate, useless, helpless. Those sorts of feelings for the old male ego, that ego. Yeah, look, to feel those feelings and to be exposed in those inadequate feelings, having those inadequate feelings, there can be a massive sense of humiliation, a massive sense of embarrassment, and the ego is just going to be crushed. The ego is going to pour. Don't ever. Let's not go there, shall we? Learning to heal this shame is not an easy process. It takes a lot of courage to have to go in to feel this. And in learning to become more connected to our emotional space, to develop more emotional awareness, I always believe in the motto of feel it to heal it. It takes a lot of courage to come in to a therapy session, into deep psychotherapy, CBT, doesn't matter what therapy techniques, to face this stuff ain't easy. going into these realms, it's like the Dante's Inferno. There's so much emotional pain stored inside ourselves. One of the main categories, or one of the main tools that we men tend to use, and also women, but more so us men, is the cold logical brain of ours, that rational, the 2 + 2 = 4, measure twice, cut once brain. You'll get used to me saying that a lot. Yeah, we overthink, overanalyze, and we even try harder and harder and harder to prove that we're okay. But when we fail, if we've got a deep internalized sense of shame, oh my God, I'm back in that shame. Rather than care for that shame, we'll either escape that shame through alcohol and other drugs, computer games, sex, porn, you name it. It will get used. Anything to comfort, anything to distract ourselves from that deep internalized shame. It's not an easy subject to talk about. And in dealing with our shame, in healing our shame, there is so much sadness sitting under that hood. To go into that sadness and feel into that sadness, to heal that sadness, ain't an easy cup of tea. It can take time, it can take years. But instead of re-shaming ourselves, how do we men start to put our hands up and start taking the courage to walk into this shame? When we fail in life, if we fail in business, or we fail in careers, or we fail in relationships, we all feel a sense of shame. We all feel a sense of failure. How do we release that felt sense of failure? How do we emotionally go in there and begin to learn to process that emotional failure? Is it shame? No, it's not shame. But when we've grown up with historical being shamed by our parents, I think perhaps maybe toxic masculinity has been inherited. I call it the poison chalice, handed down from forefather to forefather, and we're carrying that chalice. How do we start to empty out that chalice and rebuild a new chalice of deep inner wisdom, of deep inner essence, connecting to our deep inner essence, our spirit essence. That essence is a beautiful essence. But to get to that essence, we need to traverse the difficult, painful emotions of shame. Shame is a horrible. When we're depressed, sitting in the cave, the metaphorical cave of depression, how much shame are we carrying as men? Truckloads. Our ego tries to defend that as best it possibly can, but sometimes the ego just can't cope with it. And it is the ego that internalizes. Sometimes when we stuff up, we can feel ashamed. But that internalized shame, it's like it erodes any sense of self-identity. It erodes any sense of well-being. It erodes who we are. It's just absolutely torturous to have this shame inside ourselves. Healthy shame is okay. From healthy shame we can grow. We make mistakes. Rather than deny that we've made the mistake, how do we be transparent and put our hands up and say, yes, I have made a mistake. That was wrong. That's healthy shame, and we can learn from healthy shame. With our children, growing up, sometimes they'll tell lies, and when the lie has been found out, or they recognise that, that is a healthy form of shame, and internally they will process that. We don't need to ridicule them, we don't need to put them down, just allowing them to connect to that. They'll internalise that in a healthy way. But I think as men, perhaps over the years, that toxic masculinity or that poison chalice from social conditioning has been passed down. And I think men have been shamed from that. How do we heal that? Be gentle and enjoy.